There's so much in the media right now from Blake Lively's lawyers. I am not a lawyer, as you know, but I think this is really weird. So they're willing to do this on the stand, but they're not willing to tell her lawyer these things before trial. I mean, this is so absurd. How can they even say this?
Blake Lively's drama of faking everything is on the verge to be stopped, as this time she completely lost in the courtroom. And trust me, mates, it's time for her bubble of "I'll be the winner" to be bursted, as she has been playing this game of fake and win for so long.
But instead, they're just holding on to all the evidence and the witnesses that they have. It doesn't make any sense.
This time, the courtroom drama took a chaotic, almost theatrical turn when Lively's legal team walked in, expecting to control the narrative with composed statements and carefully filtered media coverage. Instead, they found themselves facing an unexpected challenge from Brian Friedman, a lawyer who wasn't interested in playing by the usual rules.
Brian Friedman has come out with the funniest statement. He's saying that he would love to depose Blake Lively in Madison Square Garden and sell tickets for a live stream with her on the stand there.
Instead of responding to the situation with subtlety, Friedman took a far more dramatic approach. His suggestion? To hold Lively's deposition at Madison Square Garden. He didn't stop there. He went on to offer to sell tickets to the event, live stream it, and donate the proceeds to survivors of domestic violence.
Judge Lehman has already acknowledged that there's a major public interest in the case, so...
What started as a serious legal matter suddenly turned into a public spectacle, and the internet was here for it. Memes exploded across social media, with people joking about popcorn sales, custom merch, and group watch parties for what was now a live courtroom drama. But amidst the jokes and memes, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a court case anymore. It had become public theater. And Blake Lively was unwittingly its leading lady.
So on Thursday, Gottlieb, who is Blake Lively's main lawyer, I think, came out in People magazine and said that it's completely unclear what claims or defenses in the case any of these celebrities have any relevance at all.
And Lively's lawyer, Mike Gotadl, was not happy about this shift in strategy. He quickly rushed to People magazine with a carefully worded, almost panicked response, dismissing the subpoenas for Taylor, Ryan Reynolds, and Hugh Jackman as irrelevant to the case.
So he's saying that it's so unnecessary for Brian Friedman to depose Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds because they really had nothing to do with any of this.
According to Gotadl, Friedman's attempt to drag those celebrities into the courtroom was nothing more than an attempt to stoke public curiosity and create a media circus.
Blake was the one who brought her high-profile friends into the situation without concern for their own personal or public backlash.
But let's be real here. Those celebrities were anything but irrelevant to Lively's case. From the very beginning, Lively had ensured that Taylor Swift's name was tied to the story. Hugh Jackman's name had been used to market the movie It Ends With Us, even though he had no official role in the film. And then there's Ryan Reynolds, her husband, who had not only been named in the countersuit, but had allegedly played a direct role in the behind-the-scenes efforts to discredit Justin Baldoni, the actor at the center of the case.
So he's saying that we don't expect this case is going to turn into a circus of parading in every celebrity that might have ever had a conversation with Blake Lively.
So when Gotadl said that they were trying to avoid a media circus, it came off as laughable. Lively's team had built the circus, and now they were complaining about the attention it was getting. If Blake didn't want a celebrity parade, she shouldn't have let it. And if she didn't want the spotlight on her famous friends, she shouldn't have used them as emotional props and legal shields.
Although obviously uncomfortable for the Lively parties, the truth is not a distraction. The truth has been clearly shown through unedited receipts, documents, and real-life footage.
Friedman, however, wasn't interested in playing the same game. He was done with the media spins and carefully crafted PR responses. His message was clear. You want to tell your truth in the courtroom? Fine, let's do it. but let the world see it. His challenge wasn't just a bold move, it was a direct attack on the credibility of Lively's case.
Actually make a really decent amount of money. I would really like to see Blake Lively trying to explain her way out of all the things that she's been claiming. You know, now that we've seen all the evidence from Justin Baldoni and how she's going to explain, for example, the dancing scene that really happened there.
He wasn't buying the narrative that her celebrity influence had no bearing on the case. And when Blake's team continued to dismiss his challenge by labeling everything as irrelevant and unnecessary, it only raised more questions. Why would Lively's influence be exempt from scrutiny, especially when it appeared that she had used her celebrity power to bend a movie, a workplace, and even an entire career to suit her personal agenda?
So Gottlieb says that we think there have been a lot of distraction put up to reflect attention from the retaliation campaign that was launched against her.
At this point, the public was no longer just curious about the case. They were invested. They had seen the narrative shift from allegations of harassment to claims of retaliation, from victimhood to accusations of media manipulation. And now, with the idea of a Madison Square Garden deposition on the table, people were watching more closely than ever. The arena that had once hosted Beyoncé, now potentially a stage for Blake Lively being grilled under oath.
All the time, and they've been accusing him of doing like this press tour, of smearing her even more, you know, and now finally Blake Lively's lawyers are...
And the twist? It would all be for a good cause. Friedman's move had a double edge. While Lively had positioned herself as a crusader for women, she had been largely silent on the issues of actual victims. The idea of holding the deposition in an arena, with the proceeds going to domestic violence survivors, threw her hypocrisy into sharp relief.
Although obviously uncomfortable for the Lively parties, the truth is not a distraction. The truth has been clearly shown through unedited receipts, documents, and real-life footage.
But the courtroom wasn't just about who had the better story anymore. It was about who could back up their claims with hard evidence. And right now, Blake Lively's team seemed to be doing everything but that. Instead of providing concrete proof, they were relying on carefully worded statements and emotional appeals. As Friedman pointed out, the truth wasn't a distraction. It was the core of the case, and he wasn't relying on media leaks or redacted documents to make his point. No, his evidence was already lined up, ready to be revealed. The raw, unedited truth was about to come to light, and it was clear that it would blow a hole in the narrative that Lively's team had been selling.
And then, of course, Gottlieb is saying that Blake Lively has all these witnesses that's going to come forward and talk about how Justin Baldoni really is.
Meanwhile, Lively's team continued to promise bombshell revelations. They claimed that they had witnesses lined up who would testify about Baldoni's alleged misconduct. But where were those witnesses? No one had stepped forward. Not publicly, not anonymously, and certainly not through leaks. The promised testimonies remained invisible, and the entire case seemed to be built on vague statements, not verifiable facts.
Even those anonymous sources that she was talking about in her lawsuit were just like, it didn't make any sense at all.
Critics began to ask, if these witnesses were real and their stories were strong, why not reveal them now? Why hold back when revealing them could strengthen the case and apply pressure during pre-trial negotiations? It seemed like a classic case of courtroom theater, a tactic designed to raise anticipation and make the other side cave in before the trial even began. But here's the problem. It only works if no one calls your bluff. And Friedman was very publicly calling it. He had already said that he had seen no credible complaints from crew members or studio staff.
And we expect and hope that in Discovery we'll have an opportunity to really focus on what we believe to be the core part of the case, which is that this retaliation campaign was launched against Ms. Lively for her having raised concerns about SH.
The public, however, was growing tired of the vagueness. They had already watched the story shift from allegations of sexual harassment to emotional discomfort, to retaliation, And now it seemed like a dramatic third act built on invisible witnesses. Friedman, on the other hand, was sitting on hard evidence, documents, timestamps, and surveillance footage. One side had mystery, the other had data, and it was becoming increasingly clear which side had the upper hand.
But instead, they're just holding on to all the evidence and the witnesses that they have. It doesn't make any sense. Blake Lively's lawyer also says that the evidence will show that the cast and others had their own negative experiences with Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer.
Lively's legal team had tried to brand her as a fearless advocate for survivors. They had positioned her as a martyr, willing to take on Hollywood's toxic culture head-on. But as the case dragged on, that narrative started to unravel. Now, it wasn't about harassment, it was about retaliation. But even that story was full of holes.
Talking about Wayfarer and Baldoni's 2 SH allegations, she wanted it. It's her fault.
One of the key incidents that Lively's team kept referencing was the now infamous cow comment meltdown. The story goes that Baldoni had asked Blake's trainer about her weight to ensure her safety during a lift scene. What was meant to be a simple and practical question became a weapon in Lively's legal team's arsenal, as they framed it as body shaming. But even the trainer, the supposed messenger, never confirmed that Baldoni had used the term cow at all. The narrative, it seemed, had been spun without any solid foundation.
And we expect and hope that in Discovery we'll have an opportunity to really focus on what we believe to be the core part of the case, which is that this retaliation campaign was launched against Ms. Lively for her having raised concerns about SH.
This wasn't a case of clear misconduct. It was a case of emotional chaos weaponized into litigation. And without concrete evidence to back up the claims, the case started to lose its credibility. One of the most ridiculous aspects of the lawsuit wasn't just what was in the documents, but who wasn't in them. Celebrities like Taylor Swift, Hugh Jackman, and Ryan Reynolds had been dragged into the case, but their involvement had been largely ignored by Blake's team. But, as Friedman pointed out, their influence was far from irrelevant.
He's saying that you can't just go around subpoenaing people because they're famous and you think you'll generate a bunch of headlines. And the federal courts don't tolerate that kind of behavior.
Taylor allegedly had a hand in script rewrites and casting decisions, and Hugh Jackman's image had been used for PR purposes, despite his lack of involvement in the film.
And of course, Brian Friedman is responding, and he says that although obviously uncomfortable for the Lively parties, the truth is not a distraction. The truth has been clearly shown through unedited receipts, documents, and live footage.
And then there was Ryan Reynolds, whose influence appeared to be at the heart of the smear campaign against Baldoni. Now, regarding this whole situation, I would love to hear your remarks, so make sure to drop your most unapologetic opinions in the comments below.